Okay, it's 1:30, so I'd like to call the May 21st Alberni Valley and Bamfield Services Committee meeting to order. I'd like to acknowledge that we are conducting this meeting on the unceded traditional territories of the Shuswap and Huipachesset First Nations, and we are grateful for the opportunity to do so. We also have directors calling in from other territories, and I would like to also acknowledge those nations and express our gratitude and our respect. Notice to attendees and delegates that this meeting is being recorded and live streamed to YouTube on the Regional District website. If anyone is watching from the public and you have questions, please send them to responses@acrd.bc.ca, and we'll look at those questions at the end of the meeting. So now I'll do introductions. My name is Debbie Haggard. I am Chair of the Alberni Valley and Bamfield Services Committee meeting, Counselor for the City of Port Alberni, and Vice Chair for the Alberni Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors. We'll go this way, Heather.
Good afternoon, Heather Zenner, Manager of Administrative Services. Me now. Good afternoon, Terry Fong, Chief Financial Officer.
Hello, Todd Patola, Counselor for the City of Port Alberni, alternate director here at the ACRD.
Good afternoon, Aklama Penny Cote. I am the electoral area director for Sprout Lake Area D. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Mariah Coots for the Chocolate Government.
Good afternoon, I'm Max Burrell, electoral area director, Cherry Creek.
Good afternoon, I'm Daniel Saya, the CAO for the ACRD, sitting beside Mike this time.
Okay, now we'll go online. Director Beckett, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Thank you very much. Bob Beckett, Director for Bamfield Area A.
Director Boyko?
Good afternoon, Fred Boyko, electoral area director for Beaufort. Thank you.
And Director Roth?
Good afternoon, Susan Roth for Beaver Creek. Thank you.
Next, we have an agenda in front of us. Is there any additions from the directors? Seeing none, is there any additions from the corporate officer?
Nothing from me.
So would someone like to move the agenda be approved as presented? Moved by Director Sparrow. Second by Director Coots. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Any declarations or conflicts of interest? Seeing none, we have minutes from the Alberni Valley and Bamfield Services Committee meeting held February 20th, 2025. Is any errors or omissions? Seeing none, could I motion that the minutes of the Alberni Valley and Bamfield Committee meeting held on February 20th, 2025 be adopted? Moved by Director Sparrow. Second by Director Patola. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. No petitions, delegations, or presentations today. No correspondence for action or information. So we'll get right down to it. Grant and aid applications through Alberni Valley and Bamfield category. So I'd like to go through it as we did this morning. We'll go through each applicant, talk about pros and cons. And Heather has requested that we also talk a little bit about the amounts during your discussion, just because we want to make motions and get to the end and see they run out of money and then have to go back and make those amendments. So if you could just have a little bit of conversation about how much you'd like to approve the applicant for, that would be awesome. And so the first one, so we'll go through them all and then we'll take a short break just to gather our thoughts, and we'll come back and make those recommendations. And Terry's going to keep a running total for us that she can show to us online. And then so we can have an idea where we're at with those thoughts. So the first applicant we have is from the Canadian Council of the Blind. They're asking for $3,000, and this is their first application to the ACRD grants and aid. Is there any questions or comments? Director Roth.
I think it's a good application and I support it.
Do you support it for the full amount? She's shaking her head yes. Any other questions or comments? Do you want us to make those recommendations as we go along then? Okay, okay. Would you like to make that recommendation, Director Roth?
Yes. To support the Canadian Council of the Blind in the amount of $3,000 for a grant and aid application.
Moved by Director Ross, second by Director Patola. Any other questions or comments? Director Cote?
Thank you. So CNIB puppies times 3. Oh, I guess that I'm assuming that these are toys.
I took it as them being toys.
Okay. Okay, I'm also kind of concerned about taxi vouchers. We're paying such a high amount for Handy Dart. I don't know why we'd be paying for taxis when people who are blind would be qualified to take a Handy Dart, in my opinion. So not really in favor of paying for taxis. Thanks.
Director Patola?
Yeah, I can't speak to this particular instance, but I am familiar with the handy dart system being significantly underfunded. So that even people that take regular fares where they book like a weekly fare for a year are being left without their plans being able to be fulfilled by the handy dart system. We have a shortage of drivers and shortage of vehicles as well. So I would think that the taxi fares fill in that gap when handy dart can't come. They're not, because they're not at 100% response.
I have Heather, then Director Coots. Please go ahead, Heather.
Thank you. I just wanted to add a little bit to that. I met with the Canadian Council of the Blind in March as part of my accessibility portfolio. And the day that I was there, a couple of the members had been asked to wait up to an hour for the handy dart past when they had anticipated their ride. So a few of the members have expressed some concerns with handy dart not being able to get to places that they needed. So that's why they did want the taxi vouchers to fill in that gap, like Director Patola just said.
Thank you, Heather. Director Coots?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Question through the chair, possibly to staff, and my apologies if you do not have the answer offhand. It is not our detailing, so perhaps not. My question is, in regards to the CNIB puppies, are these not the dogs who are used for help? They're the animals themselves?
I took it as when they did presentations to schools and classrooms and to kids, they were like toys that they presented. That's the way I read it, not actual animals, because they would be very expensive.
Thank you. And that more or less answers my second question, because I was going to state that if it was in fact real animals, perhaps that is the reasoning for the taxi vouchers, because the space for Handy Dart might not work out so well. Thanks.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, we have a motion on the floor to approve or recommend that this be approved for the amount of $3,000 for the Canadian Council of the Blind. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Next, we have the Port Alberni Backpack Program Society. They have been awarded $5,000 in the year 2023 and 2024. This year, they're asking for $7,500. Any questions or comments from the directors? Director Roth.
I would like to recommend the requested amount of $7,500 for a grant and aid to the Port Alberni Backpack Program Society.
Moved by Director Ross, second by Director Cote. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor of the recommendation? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Next is the Port Alberni Victim Services. They were awarded $26,000 in 2023 and 2024, and this year they've asked for an increase to $36,000. Director Roth, please go ahead.
This one I would like to spend a little bit of time with, just because I'm very familiar with the Ministry of Public Safety and Solicitor General from where I work. In the application, It says that, and I'm just going to read it word for word. At a minimum, the ministry expects local governments to match the ministry's contribution. This cost-sharing approach recognizes the critical role that police-based victim services play in the police response to crime and trauma. Now, I disagree with that comment. I've filled out many, in fact, 35 of these budgets using the exact same one that was presented in the package. And if you can see on page 39 of the agenda package at the top, it says program type and CBVS, which is Community-Based Victim Services, STVC, Stopping the Violence Counseling, Peace Counseling for Children, Outreach, Sexual Assault Response Program. All of these things are funded through the Ministry of Public Safety and Solicitor General, and not once have I been asked to provide any cash from municipal government or regional district government. So it just seems odd that the government would say to police victim services that they expect local government to contribute half. So I would like clarification on that because it doesn't sound right to me at all. And
Yeah,
I,
any information to share? All right, Director Roth, go ahead.
yeah, I just like clarification on that. It just doesn't make sense to me. The ministry is not likely to say that.
I was just asking staff if they had any information and they do not. Director Cote?
Thank you. We've had this same question come to the board for probably as many years as I've been on this board. Why are we paying for this? But we've had the representative come year after year explaining the shortfall of funding for this. I don't see much difference between this and providing money to the last applicant or the Council of the Blind for taxis when we're already paying for Handy Dart. So like there's overlap where we're paying when we don't think that we need to. So I would like to make a recommendation that we pay the 26,000 this year. Thank you.
Did you have another comment, Director Roth? Please go ahead.
I would support 26,000 myself, so I'll second that. But I just would like clarification, perhaps from the Ministry of Public Safety and Solicitor General, because that's what it says in this letter, that that the ministry expects us to do with that. I just don't think that's true. So I really would like backup for that. Thank you.
Could we ask staff to just get clarification on that? Thank you very much. So we do have a motion on the floor to support Port Alberni Victim Services in the amount of $26,000. Is any other questions or comments? All in favor of the recommendation? Any opposed? Motion carried. Next is the West Coast Aquatic, and 22 and 23, they're awarded $12,000. And 24, it went down to $6,000. And this year they're asking for $10,000. And I'm not really familiar with this organization, so if anybody has any information, if they could enlighten the board of directors, that would be great. Director Cote?
Thank you. This is the West Coast Aquatic, right? Okay. They have provided us we've assisted with funding. The small amount that we've provided in the past over many years has been seed money, which they've multiplied because they, in some cases, they have applications in where you have to have a certain percentage of like a quarter or whatever. And we've assisted with that. They've provided us with all kinds of mapping that has been super beneficial for our applications for grants. They've provided us with a lot of information. And I really have been impressed with what West Coast Aquatic has done in the past. They're kind of like an umbrella also to all the fisheries, all of the so many things, the Sawmess fish flow, what do you call it, across the canal, the estuary, They look after what's happening with the fiber mat. They understand all of these different aspects of what's going on around here with aquatics. So I would support their request for $10,000. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Cote. Director Boyko, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I went through their website in detail, and yeah, they do support a lot of aquatic things, but it also comes down to the fact, and this is a broader discussion, but if we help these guys with seed money over the past years, when will the seed money become self-sustaining and they no longer require grants? Just like many of the other applications that go on for years and decades, we have to set at some point, we have to say, thank you for your time. And now you're on your own. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? I'm sorry, did you make a recommendation, Director Cote, for $10,000? Was that seconded, Heather? Would anybody like to second that? Are you seconding that, Director Roth? Great, thank you. So the motion is to recommend the West Coast Aquatic receive $10,000 grant in aid. Any other questions or comments? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Next is the Alberni Valley Fiber Guild. It looks like this is their first application. They are asking for $7,500. Any questions or comments? Dr. Sparrow?
I was reading through this. Am I reading it right that they want this money? It's the wrong word, but from Fiber Guild. It's, I'm trying to figure out how this works with the grant and aid and what purposes it can have in the community. I'm kind of struggling with the benefits. Can somebody please tell me the benefits it would have in the community?
I was also a little bit confused about this application. I wasn't really clear on who they are and what their intent was. So does anybody know anything about this organization? No, any questions or comments? Director Boyko and then Director Cote.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's an application. You have to read through it a few times to understand, but they're trying to have a challenge where they can build a wardrobe within 100 kilometers of where it is taking place. So gather stuff from close by and then organize an event, bring it together. But I see little community benefit rather than a special interest group of a certain segment. So I have trouble supporting this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Cote.
I would recommend that we skip this application this year. Thank you.
Moved by Director Cote, second by Director Roth. Any other questions or comments? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Alberni Valley Food Security Society, in 2024, they're awarded $5,000, and this year they're requesting $4,200. Questions or comments? Dr. Cote.
Thank you. I think that the Alberni Valley Food Security Society provides a valuable service to the community, and I would like to support the $4,200 request. Thank you.
Do we have a seconder for that motion? Moved by Director Cote, seconded by Director Sparrow. Any questions or comments? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Broom Busters Invasive Plant Society. It looks like in 2023, they were awarded $1,100. Nothing last year, and then this year they're again requesting $1,100. Questions or comments? Director Roth.
I would like to support their application for $1,100 for grant and aid Broom Busters Invasive Plant Society.
Moved by Director Roth, second by Director Sparrow. Any questions or comments? Director Sparrow?
They came in presentation a while ago. Didn't they say that they sort of target regional districts every second year to do money and then do funding as opposed to asking every year? So maybe it's be our year.
Thank you for remembering that. I'd forgotten that. Yeah. Any other questions or comments? All in favor of awarding Boom Busters Invasive Plant Society the amount of $1,100? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Alberni Valley Hospice Society in 2023, they were awarded $10,000. They did not get anything last year, and this year they're asking $1,420, which I think is very reasonable ask for the good work that they do in our community. Director Beckett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would I share your comments, and I am completely in support of $1,420 for the society.
Did I get a seconder? Moved by Director Beckett, second by Director Cote. Any final questions or comments? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Port Alberni Community Action Team, last year they received $2,500. This year they're asking for $450. Any questions or comments? Dr. Cote.
Thank you. This is another society or action team that provides a lot of community support. I don't sit on this committee, but I think Director Haggard does. Maybe you could say a few things about it, or I believe that we should support this.
I have missed the last couple of meetings just because of conflicts, but they do really good work. They work with all the service providers in the community on the opioid crisis. They have regular interaction with Vancouver Island Health as well, have speakers brought in. And I think what this money is going to be used for is the World Opioid Crisis Day, which is usually held at the end of August 31st, I believe. So again, and there is some new directors this right now, so they're doing amazingly good work, just having that new blood and new ideas. The last directors were amazing, but it's just getting those new blood and new ideas and doing different things in the community. Director Cote.
So I was saying that I support this for the ask for $450.
Moved by Director Cote. Are you seconding that, Director Roth? Fantastic. Any other questions or comments? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Port Alberni Salmon Festival Society, they have not received anything, and then this year they're asking for $5,000. Any questions or comments? Director Roth?
Thank you. I would like to support their Port Alberni Salmon Festival ask for $5,000 for a grant and aid.
Director Boyko, did you have a comment?
Thank you, Chair. I'll second that, but at the same time, I do have a comment. I was at the event for a fair amount of it last year. Well attended. It was great to see its restart, and it was nice and hot there. And what they're proposing would be a welcome benefit. It's a great thing. The people support it. People want to see the fish. It's good for tourism. It's good for the community. Well attended. Everything's positive. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? So the recommendation is to award Port Alberni Salmon Festival Society in the amount of $5,000. Any final questions or comments? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Wholesome Meals on Wheels Association of Port Alberni. Last year they received $1,000. This year they have asked for $3,324. Questions or comments? Director Cote,
Thank you. Can we find out how much money we've spent so far, please?
do you have a total, Terry?
Absolutely. So far we have allocated $58,670. So we have remaining $59,330.
Thank you. Director Boyko?
Thank you. So, thank you, Chair. For this application, what I see is they want to buy disposable containers to put desserts in that will never come back and be reused. So fundamentally, as a society, I don't know if we should be putting taxpayer dollars towards single-use plastics like this, but at the same time, I don't have an answer for it as well. Just a discussion point. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments, Director Cote?
Thank you. I would agree with the single-use plastic. Not really wanting to support that. My son gets meals, whatever, Fresh Coast or whatever it is that they get delivered every week with meals in it, and there's containers, and they just put the cooler back out on the doorstep, and it's picked up when another one is dropped off. So I would rather see the Meals on Wheels actually do a program where they take things back and reuse them rather than these single-use plastics. I don't really want to support that. I think that that's something that we should be thinking about, our landfills and what's going to end up in them. We're trying to keep garbage out of the landfill. And I think that by supporting this is really not the best answer. Maybe we could ask Meals on Wheels if they had an alternative for this rather than disposable garbage. I would like to support it, but I don't want to support throwaway garbage. Thank you.
Thank you for that comment. Director Beckett, please go ahead.
Thank you. I'm in favor of supporting it with the caveat that we let the folks know that our request would be that they address our concerns of disposable as opposed to recyclable products, and that next year when we receive their application, we would be looking for a positive outcome or action on their part. I think that demonstrates a compromise, allowing them to move forward, but giving them direction as to what our hopes are. I think that's good leadership from the board and allows them to take to heart our concerns. Thank you.
Would you like to make that a recommendation?
I would, Madam Chair.
Thank you. For the full amount of $3,324. Thank you so much. Director Roth, is that a second or a comment? Moved by Director Beckett, second by Director Roth. And if you did you get all this information, that'd be great. Director Sparrow.
Thank you. When I look at this application, it says grant funds will be totally directed to the purchase of environmental dessert containers. Would that not be disposable containers that environmentally as opposed to plastic? So that may be part of the application already. Just saying. We asked for clarification, still they already, that's hopefully it may be what's already but that statement.
Okay, so the recommendation is that we award Wholesome Meals on Wheels Association of Port Alberni the amount of $3,324 with them working towards using recycling containers. Any other questions or comments? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Port Alberni Marine Rescue Society, it looks like historically they've received $6,000. This year they're requesting $12,820.50. Questions or comments from the directors? Director Roth.
Well, I would like to make a recommendation to support this application for $12,820.50.
Do we have a second or second by Director Beckett? Questions or comments? Director Sparrow.
I think once again, we can find a better way of funding these other than grant aid and because this is our third search and rescue kind of system that we're looking at today. It just becomes a lot for grant and aid to keep on doing this. When we have other things we can do with them. That.
Thank you for that. Any other questions or comments? All in favor of supporting Port Alberni Marine Rescue Society in the amount of $12,820.50. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Yes, Director Cote.
Thank you. Earlier today, we supported search and rescue. West Coast Island Search and Rescue for $6,000 and Alberni Valley Rescue Squad for $6,000. And I'm just wondering why we're upping the amount on this one to 12,000, even though there was higher ask for the other two. Looking at our past supports for the search and rescue have been sort of a baseline of $6,000. And looking at, as Director Sparrow said, you know, trying to find other means to fund some of these requests rather than our grant needs. So I'm not really I want to support this application, but maybe not for the full amount. Thank you.
Dr. Roth.
Two questions. First of all, didn't we already pass it? But aside from that, it's in my mind, it's because we're dealing with two different budget amounts. This morning we had a $35,000 budget. This afternoon we have a $118,000 budget, so it gives us more room to further support different applications. Thank you.
Yes, we did have a motion and it did pass, but we can always go back and revisit the amount. Director Beckett.
Thank you very, very much, Madam Chair. When it's fair comments from Director Cote with respect to trying to be equitable and fair with respect to the various search and rescue volunteers and organizations that we utilize within the region. You know, the one thing that I will say when I look at the grant application, they're attempting to change their electronics, their radar, and their FLIR system. So these are not insignificant purchases and requirements for them to operate safely and effectively. So in this case, I am supportive of the additional amount given the request. And again, you know, looking at the other requests other than the request for the drone system, I think this is very significant in order for them to operate safely and effectively. So I would continue to advocate and look for support for the entire amount. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Boyko. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think we're having some great discussions here. One thing that's a little bit different with this application compared to the previous one that was over $6,000 is the drone with thermal could be shared and is not stuck to a piece of equipment. It can fly around. Bob can use it here and Jimmy can use it here, but this thing's stuck on a boat. So it's a little bit different. You can't really share it. So we got to take that into account with the decisions that were being made. Thank you.
I'm going to suggest, Director Cote, that when it comes to the board, that you can raise that at that time and we can always reconsider. This is only a recommendation. Thank you. Moving on to ADAPT's Youth and Family Services. And last year they were awarded $8,112. And this year they're asking for $12,284. Questions or comments? Director Roth.
I would like to support ADAP's Youth and Family Services grant and aid application for $12,284.
Do we have a seconder? Moved by Director Ross, second by Director Cote. Any questions or comments? Director Sparrow.
Thanks. As I'm going through these applications, I'm noticing like this one's paying for some leasing, I guess, for office space, and the other one before that was paying for mortgage. So I understand there's cost, but couldn't they actually ask the people that they're staying with, so they defer leasing or defer the mortgage on the one before that? Because the mortgage is $8,500 and this leasing is like $4,500. I mean, there are ways of getting around that grant made. I mean, getting right. Says it's just gonna be paid towards. Or
Which-
creating leasing costs. Leasing what? I don't know. I hope it's not this in the vehicle. I don't know either. See, we're getting into the weeds a little bit here where we can't really find out what it is we're leasing, like the mortgage space of the boat before that, why they can't get a free mortgage space when they did.
Are you talking about the Marine Rescue Society
No,
or
I'm right
ADAP?
now talking about page 149. Right, on reduction, leasing costs 4380. And I said, and that's an example before that was also mortgage cost for one before that. So we're paying for, I don't know, what are we leasing? What are we helping lease?
Are you on the ADAP's application?
Yeah.
Oh.
Page 149, right, Mike?
That is correct. This says leasing cost, but I don't know what we're leasing. They're helping to lease. Before that was mortgage cost. Why are we doing this?
I don't know for sure, but I'm gonna take a guess that it is leasing a space for the youth. I'm not sure if anybody knows for sure. Terry?
It says the youth space is located above the Port Alberni skate park across from the Echo Field House. So I think it's in the city-owned building that is next, like there's those two pieces that make up the field house, and it's in the other portion in the top part of it. So those leasing costs, I would guess, are going to the city of Port Alberni.
Director Boyko?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Terry, for the explanation. So we're going to use taxpayer money to go back to taxpayers. That just seems like an administrative cost to add burden that could be potentially done in kind and disappear. Thank you.
Director Roth?
Now that I understand that too, couldn't ADAPS make an application to the city of Port Alberni for a grant in kind?
Anybody can make an application to the city of Port Alberni, just like they can make an application to the regional district. However, there is still a cost, even though it's in kind.
Okay,
to the
that's fair.
taxpayers.
That's fair.
Yeah, it was moved and seconded.
Any other questions or comments on this application? Okay, I'll call for the motion to award ADAP's Youth and Family Services the amount of $12,284. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Terry, we're down to the last one, which is the big one. Can you tell us how much money we have left?
For sure. So we have allocated $87,098.50. So we have $30,901.50, and I can throw it up on the screen if you would like.
Yeah, I think that would be great at this point. So the last one is the Alberni Valley Chamber of Commerce, and they have historically been awarded $4,000 per year. This year, they're asking for $40,000 to go towards the Visitor Info Center. Is there any questions or comments from the directors? Director Cote?
Thank you. In our package, we have a lot of letters of support for the visitor center to be supported by our grant aids. So, sorry, I can't read that. It's too far away, but 300 or 30,900 is what I would recommend that we put towards the Alberni Valley Chamber of Commerce application. Thanks.
Thank you, Director Cote. Do we have a seconder? I'll second that motion or recommendation. Any questions or comments? Director Boyko.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I still request that the $30,000 we send to McLean's Mill for operating funds by bylaw 777 be allocated as it is directed by the ACRD to the city, which will directly go to operating funds to fund the chamber, which is the extra money in the tourism budget goes to fund the chamber. So this could be a nil cost extra to the taxpayer. Take that $30,000 and disappear it from the budget. Thank you. And I can go through the details on the pages if you'd like to see how that works out.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Director Beckett.
Thank you. Just before we vote, I'd like to hear that motion again, please. I'm sorry.
Can you repeat that, Heather?
That the AB&B Services Committee recommend to the Board of Directors to award a grant and aid in the amount of 30,901.50 in 2025 to the Alberni Valley Chamber of Commerce. 30,900.
Director Roth.
I'm just wondering, as far as grant application number 20 for Port Alberni Victim Services, what if a response comes back that the provincial government requires or expects local government to provide more funding? Do we leave it at 26 or like, I'm just wondering what would happen if we expend all of the funds?
For that? No? Terry?
I can just say, I don't exactly know. I know that they have in the past requested more than what we've provided. So it's not the first time we've reduced the amount from what they've requested to 26. I don't know the exact details, but I know that's happened frequently. So I think that my understanding is they have like a one full-time employee and another part-time. So they probably just cut down the amount of hours that they're able to use that extra employee, would be my guess. That's based on the presentation that Tamara has made here in the past.
Thank you.
Daniel?
I would also add that if the ministry comes back saying that is, through this application, saying that that's the expectation, that we would respectfully ask for a meeting to discuss it. If there's going to be funding formulas that the province issues to not-for-profits without informing local government of the fact that they're part of this equation, I think there's a fatal error in their approach. I know we are creatures of the crown, but it doesn't exempt them from a need for communication.
So I'm really glad that you said that, Daniel, because it says it right in the letter that there is an expectation. So I really would like that cleared up. Thank you.
Director Cote and then Director Petola.
Thank you. I think that this is an opportunity to once again bring this back to the province. In the past, we've had resolutions made and brought them to UBCM asking for the province to step up and pay for this service, that it's their responsibility. I think that we need to go back to the province at UBCM and remind them that this is their responsibility, and that when they start putting things in a letter saying that we are responsible for a certain amount and we've never been asked for it, that it comes to us in a letter like this, in a grant and aid application, is unacceptable. So I would recommend that that's what we do. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Petola.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not quite as upset because I'm not really sure what the message is. And I would certainly join in the request for some clarification. Most grants come with a contribution requirement. So this could I could very easily have heard, not the municipality has to pay money, but for this society to receive funds, there's a contribution requirement. And you're looking for that contribution requirement from this grant and aid. And if they don't get it here, they'll look for it somewhere else. So before we cast aspersions that are probably properly deserved on the provincial government, I think we should just clarify that. In any event, I do agree with Director Cote. I mean, the government should be paying for all of this. But I think, again, in a dearth of information on it, victim services, whilst I would agree, should be paid. May not actually fall within that mandate. This is likely a private, independent society, like many social service societies are, that receive funding from the government on the basis of grant applications and contracts. And so there might be a contribution amount. Be nice if the world is different. Let's find out if it is. That'd be great. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments, Director Sparrow?
Thank you. In the letter, it says at a minimum, ministry expects local governments to match the mission contribution. Doesn't demand or say it's part of regulation, just is their expectation, but sometimes we can't meet expectations. It's that big.
So I think we have discussed the Port Alberni Victim Services quite a bit. We're going to do some follow-up on that and get some clarification, but we do have a motion on the floor for the Alberni Valley Chamber of Commerce in the amount of $30,901.50 to go help fund the visitor center. Director Boyko.
Thank you very much, Chair. When this whole thing came up, when the city denied their funding of $87,000, it was put forward that we could go to a one-time funding for a grant need and then move on to something else. So should we put a stipulation in here that this will be a one-time only thing for this calendar year and not exist next year, and some alternative form of funding will be required? I'd like to make that amendment. Thank you.
We vote on the amendment, right, Heather? Okay. Okay, do we have a seconder on that amendment? Moved by Director Boyko, second by Director Roth. Can you just read that back again, Heather, please? Okay, sorry.
Director Boyko, could you summarize that motion again so I get it correctly?
Certainly. So the background is, when this came about, the mayor came here and said that this could only be a one-time year application for grant and aid, and something else will be need to figure out next year, whether we have a referendum for a service or whatever that may be. So my amendment will be, this will be a one-time grant and aid 1 year for 2025 to the Chamber of Commerce to operate the tourism center. And after this is done, this grant and aid process, the tourism center part of the Chamber of Commerce will no longer get funding from the grant and aid as it is set up here for this particular thing. Now, we also send them $4,000 separately, so we got to figure out how to do that as well. Thank you.
Now, my question to you is, if you're going to do it by referendum, that would not happen until the election in 2026, correct? So they would not have funding for next year then.
Well, is the city cutting funding forever, or what's happening? Because it's very confusing on how this happened and just got dropped in our lap. But what was presented to this board by the mayor is, we'll look for grant and aid for this year, and after this year, we'll have to find something else out. I don't know if the city's proposing that we should have a referendum on this year for next year, or what the plan is.
I wasn't there for that meeting, so I'm not sure. Can you shed any light on that? Director Patola, were you at that meeting?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not sure which meeting the director is referring to. I wasn't present for a presentation by the mayor. I was present for discussions in camera with the city.
So we do not have clarification on that at this time. Daniel?
I can try and provide some clarification just out of our toolkit. So there's a resolution from this board asking us to explore the angle of an economic development service, which we're working on this year. The creation of that service could include some sort of service agreement with the chamber. But of course, that would be up to what the final details of that service look like and to the discretion of the board. So I'm looking into a crystal ball and we have not yet made that crystal ball. So we're working on the service, but there are elements that you've already discussed today, things like infill that would be part of economic development. There are other elements that we've identified over the last few years that would be better suited as part of an economic development service. So in our toolkit, the only thing I can think of outside of grant and aid is a economic development service. Legislation does allow us to create such a service. I believe without the need of a referendum, but I would have to verify that.
Any other questions or comments before we vote on the amendment? Dr. Cote?
Thank you. I think that this year was a different circumstance. I think that the city found themselves in difficulty with meeting their budget expectations and had to make some tough decisions and asking for assistance with funding this. I think that the visitor center provides a service to all of us, whether we're in the valley or we're on the West Coast. People come through and get that information. So I would like to support this as a one-time for sure, because there was no time to do a new business plan for the Chamber of Commerce. So this is an emergency measure in my opinion, and that's why I'd like to support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Patola.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have comments on the initial motion, but I will hold those till after the amendment. My comments on the amendment are that I understand the purpose, which I probably agree with without having to debate it. But the application, I think, is misguided, because to say that there will be no more funding for the Chamber of Commerce to operate the visitor center is ineffectual in the amount of funding the Chamber of Commerce requests, because it's merely a budgetary change within the Chamber of Commerce independently. If they have X amount of dollars, instead of assigning all of that to Chamber of Commerce issues and not visitor center, they assign some of that money to the visitor center and ask for a grant and aid for another program. So I understand the control that the director is trying to exert, basically to make a statement that this is not going to be multi-year funding. This is a one-time deal, which I can understand that, totally understand that. But the effect of saying that is to either cause the Chamber of Commerce to simply skirt the issue by redefining where their budget funding comes from per line item, or binding this board and future boards post-election to a course of action based on facts that are unknown in the future. So there may well be a time when the Chamber of Commerce needs funding for a particular program. And I won't crystal ball gaze as to what that may be. I don't think that at this point in time we should deny the availability of GIA funding to any organization in the valley, let alone the chamber. So I would not be in support of the amendment as it is currently worded.
Thank you, Director Boyko, and then Director Sparrow.
Thank you very much. And then, yeah, I do agree with Councillor Patella that the way I'm saying it is quite restrictive. I'm just following what was said in the meeting that this is a one-time thing and then something else will be done in the future. So we need to figure out a way to get the Chamber of Commerce member funded, not taxpayer funded. And that has to take place. Every other Chamber of Commerce works like that. So continuing this on forever needs to come to an end at some point. Thank you.
Just to clarify, this is not to fund the Chamber of Commerce, it's to fund the Visitor Info Center, which is not membership driven.
Well, just so we're clear, when you look at the budget for the tourism center, the 170,000 they make, there's still that 70,000 goes to the chamber. So any money that does go to the McLean's Mill and to the tourism center does fund the chamber when you go through the budgetary documents. It's very clear. I can show you what page it's on.
Director Sparrow?
Thank you. I know right now the Chamber of Commerce is in a tight spot, and I understand that. But the amendment is going to put them in a worse spot if we can't get our service area agreements. We can't agree on it for the next year. So the amendment itself is kind of restrictive. It's kind of putting too much pressure on our body and our staff right now to get what we need to get through. So I don't think I'll be going for the amendment, but I think this is a one-time deal that the chamber has to find a way to work together to get back on its feet, support it again. But and also if you say we won't support them again, like I said, if something comes up in 5-10 years from now, you sort of take them out of the mix. So we have to support them with what they're doing, but at the same time, not support them forever. So,
Thank you, Director Roth, and then Director Boyko.
Thank you. A couple of things. The Chamber of Commerce is a member-funded society, but they provided 3 different income statements, one for McLean Mill, one for the Visitor Center, and one for the Chamber itself. And it is true that money does transfer between them. BC Gaming will not provide grant funding to chambers because they are a member-funded society. And essentially what that means is, well, one of the things that it means is, should they dissolve or should they not carry on any further, their properties do not go public, although they may be publicly funded, they go back to the members, the businesses that own the chamber. So I think we need to tread very carefully here because this isn't a public entity. It's a member-funded society. Thank you.
Director Boyko.
Thank you, Chair. I'll direct everyone to page 214 of their agenda. If you want to pull it up, or I can share my screen, whatever. But so the 3 sources of revenue for the chamber are McLean Mill, 276,000, the chamber itself, 139, and the visitor center, 197. So any money that comes to the McLean Mill, the chamber, the visitor center, all goes to the chamber, and then all of their expenses get split up. So we just got to be very careful on anything we're saying that it doesn't go to the chamber, because clearly it says it does on page 214 on their statement. Thank you.
Hey, before I call for the motion, I would just like to say the Visitor Info Center provides a very valuable service to visitors entering our community. They refer to many different businesses, very many different activities to do in our community. So it's just a great service, and it was with a very heavy heart that the city made a very difficult decision. But as Director Cote said, we had $1 million shortfall and taxes this year at the Sanger closing. We had a $1.2 million increase in policing costs that we had to pay for. We had no other option. So all sorts of things were working against us. I mean, we even cut our flowering tree budget this year. So some difficult decisions had to be made. And I remember Director Boyko saying that the city did have to look at decreasing our costs. So unfortunately, it was one of the casualties, but we all truly believe in the good work that the Visitor Info Center does. So first we vote on the amendment. All in favor of the amendment? Would you like Heather to read the amendment first?
That the Alberni Valley and Bamfield Services Committee recommend to the ACRD Board of Directors that grant and aid funding to the Alberni Valley Chamber of Commerce in 2025 to operate tourism center via one-time grant, and that future ACRD grant and aid funding will not be guaranteed.
All in favor of the motion or the amendment? Any opposed? Motion is defeated. So we're back to the original motion. to award the Alberni Valley Chamber of Commerce $30,901.50. Councillor Patola.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd just like to circle back to the comments by Councillor Cote with regards to the victim services. Not that I want to talk about victim services, but I think that the point that kind of got lost in that discussion that I would like to highlight is that granting $30,900 plus or minus the change in my pocket to the chamber means there's nothing left over in case we find out in the future that victim services in fact does need the 36,000 as opposed to 26,000. And so I think that although this is just a recommendation to council or to the board, I think that the recommendation should recognize that there is a preference, possible preference upon further discussion by all of the directors on the board, that the amount available might only be 20,000. Chamber, there's an extra 10,000 is sitting in limbo. And I'm not saying that to make any suggestions about whether victim services is more deserving of that. Everybody's deserving. Whether it be more appropriate to go to victim services or to the chamber. I just wanted to recognize that in the discussion we seem to have lost the limbo amount of $10,000.
I think it was mentioned before, I can't remember previous years, but I know last year they did ask for additional funding and it was kept at $26,000 and that's been pretty standard. And somebody did make a good point, I can't remember, that we have never been informed that we have to match that funding. So you can't get blood from a stone. So if they come back and say, well, sorry, you have to wait till next year's budget. That's my way of thinking. Director Roth.
Thank you. And thank you, Director Patola. That's the point I was trying to make earlier, and you made it a lot better than I did. But yeah, the numbers could change. So I hate to be really firm on the last one because there may be some obligation we don't know about. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm good. Director Cote, after you, I'm going to call the question.
Thank you. I really hate beating on this again, but there's been a request for $36,000 for victim services for many times, and we've only ever gone up to 26,000. The board's decision through all of those years is that we're willing to put some in, but it is the province's responsibility, and I would really like us to, I don't think we need a motion, but to send a letter to the province saying that it is their responsibility and bring this back to UBCM. Thanks. And it really, victim services is down 20,000 or down 10,000. And so is the request for the chamber. So they're both down 10. Thanks.
After we call the question, I'm going to go back to you and make that a motion or a recommendation to the board for the next board meeting to write a letter. Okay, so the motion on the floor is to fund the Alberni Valley Chamber of Commerce in the amount of $30,901.50. $30,900. All in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you very much, everyone. And I'll go back to Director Cote to make a recommendation.
I make a recommendation for the board to send a letter to the province and maybe a resolution for UBCM regarding the province's responsibility to fund the victim services fully.
Can I get a seconder on that? Moved by Director Cote, second by Director Sparrow. Director Boyko, please go ahead.
Oh, I'll support that too. I got something else after this. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions or comments? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Director Boyko, you had a comment?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion similar to what Director Cote just did is I want to make a motion to the city from the regional district to examine the $30,000 that we send to McLean's Mill for operating funds that gets redirected to capital funds to instead put that to operating funds, which we've just shown goes to the chamber. and could be allocated in amongst there and help out with the tourism center indirectly by helping pay for the chamber stuff. I would like that to take place so that we're not sending $60,000 there. We're sending 30,000 as we are already doing. Thank you.
Moved by Director Boyko, seconded by Director Roth. Any questions or comments? Director Patola.
No questions or comments at the moment. I'm not really sure what the motion was. It was fairly lengthy.
Thank you, because I don't understand it either.
I will say it fairly clearly. Make a motion to ask the city to spend the $30,000 from bylaw 777 from 1992 to allocate the $30,000 to operating funds as it says in the bylaw and in our grant policy to operating funds at McLean's Mill, not capital funds as the city is currently reallocating it. Thank you. Putting the money where it's supposed to go.
Director Roth, then Director Beckett. Please go ahead, Director Roth.
So this may be something that staff can clarify, but that's a separate bylaw, so it does seem it would go twice. Maybe Daniel could speak to that?
I can. So we have a bylaw 777 that is $30,000 max. We send $29,900 each year to the city of Port Alberni, and it's for the McLean Mill Historic Society or historic site. And the bylaw states that it is for operating that site. The city uses it and uses the money in a reserve fashion to then do some capital replacements. I can bring forward a report at some point if you like, but like part of operating a service is to ensure that you actually have buildings to operate with. So I don't feel like they're legally offside in how they allocate the funding. I do feel like that is their choice of how they do that because it is still staying on that site. But what Director Boyko is asking is that instead that the operating agreement that they have with the chamber to operate the McLean Mill, that if they reallocated the 30,000 coming from the electoral areas of the valley to the chamber to do the operations aspect, that we would then not have a grant and aid request. So no, they're not getting directly like 29,900 plus now the 30,900. The one's going to the city of Port Alberni based off of the bylaw, which we're not discussing today because it is a separate bylaw that had a referendum. And then the one today will go directly to the chamber to support their tourism. I hope that answers your question, Director Roth.
Okay. Thank you, Director Beckett.
I just want to confirm that whether this is a motion or a recommendation, it does have to go back to the board, correct?
That is correct. Okay, just so everyone understands the recommendation to the board. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion is defeated. Okay, any questions from the public?
No emails received. Nothing in Zoom. We do have an audience member.
Did you have any questions or comments, Julie? I didn't want to put you on the spot.
I didn't know I could make comments. Just gratitude and thankful to everybody for supporting our grant and aid application. That application was meant to be $90,000 to be on par with what we received from the city of Port Alberni in the past. So 30,000 does help us, but it's not going to keep the doors open as long as we intended to. As an update, we did get successful funding from Neutron Health Employment Training Program, Canada Summer Jobs, and we got our annual DBC operating grant. And I just want to thank those who have helped educate what the Chamber of Commerce is. We are just so happen to be the service provider for visitor services. It is in our strategic plan to make a decision on whether or not we continue providing visitor services. It could be picked up by anybody. It could be picked up by a municipality or a regional district or a destination marketing organization. That's why you don't kind of see it as common in communities as to who provides that service. It's very important to have that service. We still have maps and information outside the door, and that's depleted daily. So that's amount of touch points that we're missing and really telling people the secret hidden gems in Port Alberni. And we also have public bathrooms, which are also closed. But we're probably going to open them soon because there is higher traffic and we're seeing people squatting in the bushes at the visitor center now. So this has impacts on us when a service was terminated, and that was not for public debate and discussion. It was a service that was discontinued in December behind closed doors, and we didn't have a real plan to transfer the service to the regional district. So I appreciate that this wasn't one-time funding, as we do perhaps have to figure out the plan and timing for when legislation will allow the regional district to install this as a service, if that's the will of the board, which we would love to see. And we may not always be the service provider, and we're just very thankful that for the discussion, and great to see that there's grants going to all the deserving folks that are doing services in the Alberni Valley. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I'll just add a comment. I can't believe how much busier the traffic is already. I noticed it in April. It was more like June and July traffic. So it's getting extremely busy. And so I think we're going to have a very busy summer. And just thank you again for all the good work that you and your staff do. Yeah. And I just want to thank the directors for being very patient today, going through a difficult process. You were very patient, very respectful, and I appreciated everyone's very thoughtful comments. The process was much easier this year than it has been in previous years. Thank you to Heather and all her hard work for making it a much easier and more streamlined process. So, and I think it'll just get more and more streamlined as we move forward. Director Roth, then Director Cote.
I'm curious to learn if it seems to me there was far less application this year. Am I correct, or maybe not?
I actually don't know that. I'd have to look. Perhaps I could bring that to the board meeting.
Director Cote?
Thank you. Because the visitor center isn't open, we're not actually able to receive comments from the people traveling through. I know that I've asked for Ministry of Transportation to come and talk about Cathedral Grove. I see that there's a letter I've passed on to send to the board from a resident at Sprout Lake talking about their concerns also about safety in the Grove. So I know with those new concrete partition along the sides of the road, it's just made it that much harder for people to navigate through that little stretch. So just a question to staff, will Ministry of Transportation be coming to the board anytime soon? Thank you.
I believe so. I don't know off the top of my head exactly when, but I do know the request was extended twice now.
Thank you. Get a motion to adjourn. Moved by Director Patola. Seconded by Director Sparrow. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Thanks so much, everyone. Appreciate your time.